From Studio 226 in Orlando, this is Aging Smarter. Aging Smarter is a podcast focusing on making it easier to grow older and prepare for the future at any age. We aim to educate, entertain, prepare, and amaze you about your life's journey regardless of your age. I'm your host, retired and former circuit judge Jose R. Rodriguez. Today we're exploring how clinical research shapes the future of medicine and why it matters. So today, joining me, is Dr. Sheila Baez-Torres. She's an expert in clinical research and in medical innovation. Dr. Baez-Torres joins the K2 medical team as a principal investigator, a neurologist, and movement disorder specialist with over 12 years of experience. Not just yesterday, but 12 years of experience in the field. Dr. Baez-Torres' main focus has been neurodegenerative diseases, specifically dementia and Parkinson's. After several years of inpatient and outpatient practice for Advent Health, she joined forces with Compass Research, an independent research facility where she participated as the acting clinical neurologist, providing supervision to patients enrolled in numerous clinical trials within her areas of proficiency. In addition to clinical investigator duties, she also lent her expertise in the referral and pre-screening processes at the site. In 2021, she opened her own successful practice here in Winter Park, Florida. Dr. Baez-Torres' academic background includes a bachelor's in general science from the University of Puerto Rico, followed by her medical degree from the Universidad Central del Caribe. After graduation, she completed her neurology residency program at, of all places, Jackson Memorial Hospital at the University of Miami. Then participated in a 2-year fellowship in movement disorders and electromyography. Most recently, she obtained a master's degree in business administration from the University of Florida in Gainesville, and Dr. Baez-Torres is bilingual, fluent in both English and Spanish, and she has 2 lovely daughters with whom she spends all of her free time with them and her family and friends. Dr. Baez-Torres, first of all, let me welcome you to Aging Smarter.
Thank you.
Let's start with telling us, is there anything about you that I have missed?
You did a very good job. I'm from Puerto Rico, born and raised.
Where particularly on the island? La Isla del Encanto, where you born?
La Isla del Encanto, Arecibo, Puerto Rico.
Oh, Arecibo, where they have that big antenna
Satellite,
to listen to the cosmos.
The cosmos, yes.
Fantastic.
The northwest
Northwest,
side of the
yeah.
island. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me, let's start with the basics. Exactly what is clinical research? And why should everyday people care about it?
So clinical research is a very comprehensive process to start with. It's how every single medication, every single medical device or treatment starts.
In other words, all of that thing, all of the advertisements that we see, if it's not over the counter and if it's a prescription medicine, I don't want to mention names, but there's so many. Last night I counted over 30 advertisements in a period of 2 hours on TV, on cable TV, for these types of medications that I guess we're supposed to tell the doctors to give to us. All of that is
that's
what clinical...
a PR approach, current PR approach. But it's very interesting because every single pill out there went through this process, right? So once the preclinical process is completed at animals at the bench level in the laboratory.
So we start with animals, like rats.
We start with
guinea
cells,
pigs or dogs or monkeys. So then we progress.
Yes. Then permission from FDA is granted, hopefully, and the clinical trials, the human clinical trials start. So we start by different phases. The more advanced the phase, the longer has been studied the medication or the device, and the more we want to learn about it. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, then clinical approval, medical approval by FDA happens. And there's some phase 4 studies that are for post-marketing, second indications, sometimes also at that level. So,
how long does it usually take for new treatments to make it from the lab, with a white lab coat, to the doctor's office?
It takes decades, at least a decade, certainly.
10
if
years?
it makes it.
Almost? Oh
if it
my.
makes it, yes.
Wow. So you've mentioned that many clinical trials get delayed or canceled because of low participation. Why is that happening?
Well, first, assuming the medication investigation goes well, many patients are not aware of the existence of opportunities in their local communities.
Nobody tells them.
Nobody tells them.
The doctors don't tell them.
Well, doctors are quite busy in their office, in the
course.
hospitals, and sometimes their busy schedule don't allow that extra minute, considering the amount of medical conditions
And to
needs.
speak and to be an advocate for the doctors have conditions that they're treating right then and there. So perhaps their focus is not on what would have been and what might be of a potential clinical trial, right?
I think it depends on the severity of a particular patient.
Aha.
For example, yes, they have to cover everything, especially at primary care level. They have so much to cover, right, during their 30, 40 minutes encounter if it's an animal visit. And once they make it to maybe a referral to a specialist, if they see that the standard medical treatments
Is not working.
hasn't worked, then they may consider it, but it's kind of the end of the line, usually, versus doctors that are more involved or more aware of the opportunities and may suggest the opportunity of clinical trials to patients from the get-go, the moment they get a diagnosis. Would you consider clinical trials? These are the options, that kind of approach.
We've talked about successful clinical trials. What happens when something that showed promise in animal trials doesn't really work out the way it should when it moves to human trials? What happens?
If it doesn't work out, the study is shut down immediately. Yeah,
From an ethical standpoint?
From the ethical standpoint, safety standpoint, efficacy standpoint, there are multiple reasons.
Now let's look at the other side. What happens if it just goes absolutely gangbusters and you're seeing that, holy guacamole, this stuff is really working. It has no side effects, or the side effects, maybe a little cough here, a little cough there. Of course, I'm exaggerating. But if the side effects are minimal, what happens then? Do they get turned? Do any of these clinical trials get provisional approval or something like that?
Well, there's a path for expedited approval available, but most drugs go through the regular multiple phases trial. Expedited approval may happen in conditions where there's no treatment available, so there's a big need unmet, and that may expedite the process. Normally, it's not that way. You go through phase 1 where you have limited amount of individuals involved in the study, and you want to look for the safety, the basics,
Sure.
right? And through all phases, safety is always included.
Number one.
And then you go to phase 2. You want to see what's the right dose, is it efficient, the medication, and then you will be enrolling maybe a couple of hundreds patients in a phase 2 trial. Phase 3. Then you want more patients with the disease. You could be in the thousands. Now you want bigger numbers to prove the point. You want to know if the dose is correct. You always want to know the safety
dosing.
side, right? Does it help? Is it safe for the patients to be on it? And once you gather all that information is when a pharmaceutical company presents the information to the FDA
for approval.
FDA may say, no, go back and prove A or B or C other point that wasn't clear in the study. So it takes multiple attempts before a medication makes it to the approval level. And it's still under investigation, even if it's approved. How many drugs have been recalled from the market, right? Once have been approved, how many drugs go back to research for potential new indications?
What are the new types of drugs that are under consideration? Do we have an idea what they might be that are undergoing clinical trials?
Well, it depends the field, the medical field. Certainly, I see an overwhelming approach to look for the immune system. There's an apparent.
Oh my gosh, the commercials.
The commercials, right?
Commercials.
Biologics.
Exactly, that's what they call them, the biologics. And then they say, well, wait a minute. some of the side effects are that it might attack another part of the body because it's cranking up the immune system.
Well, there's a potential underlying inflammatory process in every disease, including the diseases of the brain, neurodegenerative conditions. And many of the new drugs are trying to attack that mechanism, control the inflammation, and hopefully slow down the disease progression. So I see a lot of disease-modifying medications that look for controlling the underlying inflammation.
I see.
And it's very interesting. That means we're not talking about treatment for symptom control. That is just to help you, yet the disease continues progressing. What we want is always the cure, but while we make it there, then we're looking for disease modification, slowing down the progression of the disease.
Knock out the devil of the disease.
And prevention. There are tons of studies in the area of prevention, especially in our field that I specialize the most, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, neurological conditions. We have identified ways of diagnosing the risk factors present even before the symptoms develop. Pretty cool, right? So
that is so cool. It's North Pole.
Think about it. So if I can do a blood test, and they're available.
Yes.
And I can tell you based on your age, medical conditions, family history, genetics, right, that plays a role. And based on this abnormal blood test, we can predict who is at risk, let's say, for Alzheimer's disease. And we have even diagnostic tests that could also confirm if these persons that are already at risk because of their overall profile, let's say, if they're already developing that pathology in the brain. We have scans that can prove that. And new medications are being developed to attack these patients that are at risk with these changes already, the pathology. So if I can identify the changes before the symptoms start and I start treating it, can we slow down or hopefully stop the onset of the symptoms?
That is phenomenal.
And that's happening.
That is phenomenal. No. And from when I was a kid, and I'm old, I have seven decades of going around the sun. I'm 73, and all that I can tell you is that in my lifetime, there has been such an incredible development in treatments and in medicines. It's obvious that we're living longer because of the medical breakthroughs. And what you're telling me is that it's the clinical trials that have empowered and that have allowed that to occur. I wish. Is there anything that we can do to speed up the process?
Probably enrollment. Patients' participation in clinical trials would make a big difference. Many clinical trials are prolonged, delayed, the completion because of poor enrollment sometimes. That takes away the ones that are disqualified because they're not safe or not efficient, the new medications. But if we could get that enrollment, the participation going, we could have stronger data to present to FDA.
We talk about doctors and nurses as being the purveyors of possibility. That sounds poetic. The purveyors of possibilities of the clinical trials. What if we had guardians of individuals that are incapacitated but that may need to participate in clinical trials? Do you think that would help? Again, having another group of individuals that know about the availability of clinical trials?
And they exist. There's so many community leaders, whether it's at church or health fairs or individual groups that could actually facilitate the care for these patients that also get involved in making them aware of the opportunities of trial. So we do try to reach out to these leaders in the community and in the medical field to take the message and share the word.
Excellent. Now, representation in research has been a topic lately, and that again, we talk about diversity. And diversity in this case means to have as broad a group of individuals as possible. Not just men, not just women, but men, women, and different ethnic backgrounds. Why is that important in clinical studies?
In simple words, we want medications that work, but that work for all.
Everybody.
Right? That makes sense. So I
it.
want to make sure that the new medications help the Hispanics, but also the Caucasians or the Indians, everybody, no matter the other medical conditions. How do I know if it works for a patient X with A and B medical condition if I don't study it, right? Sometimes even genetics, again, going back to the case of Alzheimer's disease, we know there are genes that predispose patients to Alzheimer's disease, and they are really important in research. So most clinical trials do check certain genes, version that we all have, the different types of these genes, and they want to know what version do you have to know if you're at higher risk, but they also want to know what version you have to know if that gene version predispose you to respond better not to a medication.
That reminds me of the BRAC gene in breast cancer studies, where if you had one, chances are good you're going to have breast cancer. If you had two, forget about it, you are going to have breast cancer. And if you had neither, the odds were much, much less. So genetics does make a role, an incredible role in clinical trials. And that's why you need as broad a sample as you possibly can get, so you can get everybody with every kind of gene,
genetics, age, gender, race. We want to look at all these demographics.
Yeah. So what barriers do you find underrepresented communities face in getting involved?
So we already mentioned awareness of, or sometimes fear is out there. Clinical trials have an ugly early history. Right?
Well, the Tuskegee experiments, where they didn't really take care of the individual that participated the way that they should have.
That is correct. Many decades ago, patients with syphilis were involved in trial without their proper consent, and they were not aware even of the available treatments already available, and so they let the conditions progress in these individuals.
Yeah, and it's hard to get back the confidence of any kind of a community after you've done that to them.
The fear is still there, definitely.
Yeah.
So many years later, although there's many layers of ethics and regulations. Now, the fear is there. You would not believe how many times a patient may tell me, I don't want to be a guinea pig.
A guinea pig, yes.
I heard that so many times a day. And I wish they could understand, actually, the level of monitoring, the safety monitoring in clinical trials, and also knowing that these medications take so long to be approved. It would take decades for a condition that is potentially progressive to have a medication that could slow down the disease progression and not just settle with the symptom control that we know that do not control the disease progression.
It seems to me that some folks would have to be absolutely desperate in their condition in order for them to participate in the trials. In other words, like you mentioned, it's the last shot, the last chance that they've got before they lose their life, before they lose their certain abilities.
In certain conditions, that could be the case. In many others, again, we're talking about prevention, whether it's through vaccines or medications that can remove these abnormal changes developed in the pre-symptom phase of the disease. So many others are just care about science in general.
Yes.
So many others have family history of a condition, and they want to help science to develop better treatment. They may be the children of somebody with the disease, and they're
how can, let me ask this, because we're really at the crossroads of, I guess, great things happening in the area of Alzheimer's discoveries, as well as Parkinson's and other dementia-related, dementia being the umbrella term. How can healthcare providers and community leaders and individuals work together to build more trust in research?
Educating the leaders, the patients, the caregivers, absolutely, making information available in simple terms, right? What we're doing right now, I'm sure it's definitely making a difference in our community. Being transparent about the desire for making things better, but also making sure they understand that everything is voluntary in research. Everything is free, everything is always voluntary. So we make so much emphasis on that when we do it.
And you tell them that at any time they can quit?
Absolutely, anytime. We would like to retain the patients, but if there's a specific situation, whether it's the time burden that it brings for the patients or the caregivers to take the patients to the appointments, we try to facilitate. We provide transportation. We try to make it easier. Some of the newer protocols add maybe phone calls, virtual visits to limit the burden on the hours that are required for participation. But I think overall we want to be transparent and be as helpful as possible. And if at the end of the day research is not what the person needs, we understand and always value and appreciate their participation.
However, you are able to use up to that point any progress or any regress that the individual has done, right? You can still use it even if it's an incomplete trial or for that person?
It depends how the person decides to withdraw their participation. They, again, they're in control.
Yeah.
They can say, okay, I'm done with my participation. I'm no longer going to participate, but you can use the data you have obtained so far, or they could also remove the right for the
withdraw.
Their data would be removed from the analysis. They can also do that. But we don't want that. We want them to proceed, complete the study. Also, we want to be fair and let them know what our expectations are. We want the patients to participate, to benefit of the trial, but also know that it's not random visits. There's certain orders. There's a specific protocol, activities that we have to complete in a timely manner so the data is meaningful. If you come today and not next month for the checkups or the dose, how would this information help the pharmaceutical companies at the time of analyzing the data
and the
collected?
FDA and evaluating?
That's right. And another way how clinical trial outcomes could be delayed, right? If the data obtained is not showing any value results, sometimes they need to enroll more patients or prolong the studies. These are all factors.
Dr. Baez-Torres, I've read somewhere in an NIH study that there was something to do with your ability to smell and to taste that was a pre-indicator of Parkinson's or some other brain dysfunction. Can you comment on that? Do you know of any research specifically that might give us an idea of how your olfactory helps us to determine what's going on inside the noggin?
So that is correct, actually. Especially for Parkinson's disease, we know that the pathology of Parkinson's can be identifying areas like that control the olfactory. So there's clinical testing available to see if patient has decreased olfactory function, and it's a reflection of what's happening in the brain, right?
So if that is you used to have a difficult time drinking wine because the taste of the wine didn't work, and then as you grow older, you like to drink the wine, the taste of wine changes.
Well, you lose the sense of olfaction, therefore the taste is decreased. Now, full disclosure, not everybody that has a poor sense of olfaction has Parkinson's or anything like that, especially
It's just
with pollen and,
Yeah.
allergies and
It's just
whatnot.
basically tough luck. You've just lost your sense of taste.
It could be unrelated, very non-specific, and not enough by clinical.
But it gets your antenna going.
If other symptoms are also associated. For example, if you tell me you're losing your sense of smelling things, and then you're also slowing the way you walk, or having a little bit of tremors new to you, or your voice is changing, getting softer. So when you put all together, then it makes more sense. Another perfect example would be constipation. Patients with Parkinson's disease, early Parkinson's disease, can have what we call non-motor symptoms. That means unrelated to the movement part. So before the mobility is affected, you see patients that do complain of constipation or lack of smell. And it's so unspecific, but just by that, you cannot diagnose Parkinson's. But when you
I don't
ask,
know. Wait. I don't want everybody out there to
Yes.
go and say, oh, my God, I have constipation. Oh, my God, I've lost my sense. I must have Parkinson's, because that's not it. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's the full disclosure here. Having said that, many patients that do have the official diagnosis, they can look back and say, oh, yeah, and I remember I have been constipated. So other subtle findings that helps putting the pieces of the puzzle by itself, by no means could be diagnostic.
Now, if you could share one thing that you wish everyone understood about clinical research, what would that be?
I wish patients could understand the layers of safety involved in clinical research. For example, I'm a neurologist. Yes, I'm a principal investigator for different clinical trials at K2, but we also have above me the individual pharmaceutical company medical monitor. You have a study monitor and also medical monitors, right? And above them, there's always Big Brother watching, FDA
Yes.
level. So you have all this layer of monitoring, and that works along with the partnership we have with doctors in the communities, right? So we don't take over the care, we work with them, absolutely.
You basically are there to educate them.
I'm there to identify the correct patients for the trials. If they qualify, we start the treatment. I'm there to oversee their participation and their safety, and
Excellent.
gather the proper information that is required for this study. So number one is always safety.
Dr.
right?
Baez-Torres, I want to thank you for sharing your insight. You've really helped us with clinical research and understanding what it's all about. It isn't just about science. It's about people. It's about progress and the future of better care for everyone. Folks, you've been listening to Aging Smarter. Thank you for joining us today. Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep aging smarter. Please make sure that you give us a like and that you subscribe. Also, let me remind you that this episode would not be possible without the assistance of K2 and the global platform, Global Alzheimer's Platform. Finally, I want to thank our Emmy-winning showrunner, Art Miles, and my producer, Annie Rodriguez Newbern, without whom these episodes would not be able to take place. Thank you all. See you next time. Aging Smarter, that's what you got to do.